going on, folks, man? Now, I would like, before we start this episode, I apologize. Somewhat during the dialogue, your boy Cat start getting a little bit impatient, and I start pressing X a little bit because I got tired of watching. I feel like playing this game, Judgment. It's a long movie, man. It's just a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of plot to it, but certain things are, I find, not as important as others. So my bad. I pressed the X button a couple times, but I'll briefly explain if you guys misunderstand what was said.
I've been waiting for you, Yagami-san.
Rolling out the red carpet, huh?
Izu...
The man never changes. He loves his mind games.
Yagami-kun, how did they convince you to come?
I heard your pal Izumita wants to chat. And depending on what I say, he may or may not try to arrest me.
I'm not sure it'll be quite like that.
Huh? Then what's it gonna be?
Well, you're about to get thrown to the wolves.
Hey, Mafuyu.
Good luck. Excuse me. I've brought Yagami-san.
Much appreciated.
Huh. Even the chief prosecutor's in on this.
Please come in.
So these are the wolves. A room full of prosecutors, huh?
Yagami-sensei, I believe Kuroiwa-san already told you this, but we want to talk to you about Shintani-sensei's murder. However, this is not a courtroom. And we're not strangers. Or wolves. Just try to relax.
Yeah, relax, right. I'm not telling you what you want to hear, though. You want me to say I killed Shintani, right? Sorry, not happening. The burden of proof's on you anyway. So why don't we start there? Why do you think I did it?
Yagami-sensei, where were you on the night of Shintani-sensei's murder?
Answer my question with another question? That's not very nice.
Do you have an alibi for that evening?
You heard of a company called KJ Art? The place is a front for some Kansai Yakuza, the Kyorei clan. On the night of the crime, I was near there with their captain, Shioya. He'll back my story up, I'm sure.
And care to explain why Shintani-sensei's corpse was found in your office?
I was hoping you could tell me. Maybe the real killer could answer that for you.
Naturally. That's why I called you here.
Mind if I interject?
Go right ahead, Morita-san.
Yagami-san, you stole a look at Shintani-sensei's call history before the police arrived, yes? Not long before his death, he placed a call to the Advanced Drug Development Center. Knowing that, you barged into the center and interrogated both Kido-san and Shono-san. Why would you do such a thing?
I wanted to figure out what made Shintani a target. Who wanted him dead?
Is that not the police's job?
I couldn't leave it to them. Or the prosecution. After all, you guys have a bad habit of going after the wrong guy. Kinda like right now.
I see. So you mean to imply someone else killed Shintani-sensei? Do you have anything that could prove that claim?
From Yagami's standpoint and perspective of this whole meeting with the prosecutors, I think he kind of playing technical, like battles here, like technical retort, somewhat try to get into their heads and figure out what they would say during the time of an actual investigation once we get subpoenaed into court to prove that we didn't do it, which is on their side. They want to prove that we did do it, but I think they're only doing it because they're some crooked freaking bastards and they're just trying to, point the fingers at someone.
Working my ass off because of you guys. Now, can we begin?
Yes. You have the floor, Yagami.
Before we get to Shintani's murder, there are a few things I need to cover. 1 year ago, the ADDC published a research paper on a new drug they were developing called 89. This drug has gained global recognition as the thing that may finally cure Alzheimer's disease. What hasn't gained recognition is the fact that someone from the ADDC was murdered 6 months ago.
An ADDC member murdered? Who?
Then don't forget some of this information we had discovered through Sari-san when she was a host, and she kind of talked to her friend. That friend kind of knew people who was murdered in and out of, and how the old ADC the old ADC head president was actually attacked as well. So we kind of know ins and outs that they don't know. And I think the point of Yagami explaining this to the prosecutors is to kind of get them on their toes, like, holy smokes, he knows some part of the story that we don't know. So it's possible that even if we do trial him to court, he'll beat that case. And as well, if he'll beat the case, he'll be inside on us, and he'll be able to prove to the point that one of y'all is actually the crooked cops and the bad person.
Hashiki was seen arguing with a strange man in Kamurocho before being found lying beaten in the street. He died in the hospital 3 weeks later. The culprit is still at large. Did you know of this case?
It's the first I've heard of it.
Understandable. It didn't make many headlines. Incidentally, this Hashiki guy had a pretty big secret.
Uh-huh.
Turns out he was working for the Kajihira Group, a massive construction company based out of Kansai. Kajihira was planning to redevelop the land the ADDC sits on. He'd already settled it with the Minister of Health, had the Kyorei clan muscle in on the turf too. But the plan fell apart when 89 was announced. Kajihira ended up taking a pretty big hit, to the tune of 100 billion yen.
What?
That's when Hashiki came in, swearing to Kajihira that he'd scuttle 89, no matter what it took. Just before he was beaten half to death, Hashiki went out with another member of the ADDC. Someone deeply involved in the development of 89. Someone he thought he could manipulate.
I think what's relevant to this situation is that since the scientists had known it was with Takashi before the night that he got killed, possibly had some relevance towards him doing it, or, you know, manipulating evidence and making it just look like, oh, he died from natural causes, or he got killed from this and that way. He manipulated somewhat of the evidence. He had to, because if you're there and you're just out the situation and kind of just trying to plead the fifth, you know something that we don't know, buddy, but you better keep quiet. You better keep quiet. Don't take that stand and become a ratatouille, you know what I'm saying?
I'm sure you recognize this man, Izumida-san. 3 years ago, he testified about the murder that had taken place at the ADDC. He claimed he had seen the victim, a patient by the name of Waku, still alive.
I remember him. You're referring to Dr. Shono?
Mm-hmm. He's also the head of the 89 research team. Hashiki was grilling Shono, convinced that there was something fishy going on with 89.
Like what?
He thought they had fabricated data and falsified the effects of the drug. After all, it wasn't until rumors of closing the ADDC started swirling that Director Kido suddenly announced 89. Hashiki was convinced it was all too convenient to be coincidence. But that doubt didn't sit well with those who stood to rake in massive profits off 89's development.
Are you implying Hashiki's murder was premeditated?
Sounds like we're finally on the same page, Izumida-san. I had the exact same thought. Taking all this into account, doesn't it seem like there really is something fishy about 89? But let's get back to Shintani. Just before he was murdered, he called the ADDC and tried to get in touch with a very specific someone. Maybe that phone call provoked whoever is trying to hide the truth about 89. Shintani was an obstacle, just like Hashiki. He had to be removed. What I'm saying is, there's a chance anyone who gets too close to learning the true nature of 89 is being murdered. And if you haven't investigated down that path, then one thing's pretty clear. You have a lot more work to do before you can arrest me. Wouldn't you say? Answer me, Izumida! If you still want to bring me in, let's see some proof. All these prosecutors, and nobody's got any proof.
That's quite a theory, Yagami-san. Truly fascinating. There were details in there even we weren't aware of. You've clearly done your homework.
I'd be glad to hand over my findings if it'll help. After all, 89's practically a household name at this point. Lifting the lid on him might be too much for me to handle all on my own. And besides, I think I'd rather work with you than Izumida here.
I mean, we start reaching our breaking point because Yagami, he's a very person who's devoted and care about what he's doing, not only just as a lawyer, what, you know, this detective work he's playing, but just for those people that's involved. He has a relationship with them. He kind of getting upset because he know that he's trying to be tricked or played here. Everything that he's given and saying and every evidence that he's providing, they're still willing to just dismiss whatever he's saying in general and kind of go with the plan that they wanted to. And I feel like this is like a taunting thing. Like, hey, we know what you know, but don't use it into court because you don't really have no evidence. But the evidence we have now is enough to prosecute you. So it's like you want to become our puppet, or you want to go with the story and get blamed and just get wrongly criticized for this crime and kind of go with it. So they're kind of toying with us in a sense. Like it's a shame. It's a shame. And they're abusing their power. You can tell. And the sad part, Yagami is more emotionally too, because that woman sitting over there that seems so innocent and quiet, that's our ex-girlfriend, and she's actually working for these people. But we can't tell her like, hey honey, stop working. Don't chase this bag. Don't do it. They're even blaming Ayabe.
What?
Only thing they got on Ayabe is that he was giving us dirty evidence. Not necessarily dirty evidence, but he was going into the case files and we was paying him off to get the police reports and everything like that. But they still trying to say that we're going to take this route for her. Still? We're going to find out. We're going to find out one way or another. One way or another, suckers.
Made a sound. Behind his death are the vast profits of the AD9 drug. Yagami arrives at the possibility that all the deaths were premeditated. But the prosecution's eye for such detail is wanting, and Detective Ayabe is indicted for Shintani's murder.